Excellent. Well, my clock is at the top of the hour, so I'll just begin. Yes, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. I'm Petri Autio, the head of product for mWater. And today we'll be talking about our brand new customer management modules for water systems. You should be seeing my screen, hear me all right. And yes, the session is being recorded, so be mindful of that, and you'll be able to catch up later on as well. Just in case some of you aren't yet so familiar with mWater, quick recap and overview. By now, mWater is the solution for all of your WASH data collection, monitoring, mapping, and management needs. So really, we aim to bring everything together. That speaks to today's points about the new features. And more, we see ourselves as a digital public good that you're just able to use at scale, safely, and for free to do more with less. This has for long been our vision anyway, but now in the current climate, we want to double down on this and just keep providing more and more features, more value for all kinds of work to do with WASH. And as you'll see today, more and more to do with water service providers, water utilities, and operators. Just in case you're not familiar, mWater consists of the Surveyor app that you can use on your Android, your iOS, or your web app, and that's the easy to use, offline capable, multilingual app, which is focusing on data collection. So in relation to today's work, we'll talk about adding customers through the app, customer records, doing meter readings, but that's how you do the data entry. On the other hand, we have the portal, which is the website side where basically everything else happens. So where the administrators go to design surveys, manage data, and review it, share it with other stakeholders, and do visualizations and everything else. That's on the portal, and you can freely download the app. You can go to the portal. On the right side here, I'm just showing one view of how well spread we are by now. This is just a map of water points and health facilities that users who have mapped them have decided should be publicly viewable. So we are really operating at scale. Some key statistics would include 40,000 images a day. We're at over 30 million surveys, going to be 35. Lots of pace picking up, over 300,000 users and across the world. So today's big focus, of course, is what we released last week and have been working on for a long time. These 3 free modules that go and are now available for you to activate in any water system that you manage. Number 1, customer management and billing, which intends to improve your cash flow, keep track of your customers. You can manage those customer accounts. You can track any charges that are accrued by those customers and any payments they make, as well as quickly then see where are customers who you need to address, get in touch with, how much their outstanding balances might be. Now that's one module. If that's all you need from these features, that's fine. You don't need to worry about the other ones. The next one would be meter reading. This is something that's been asked for a long time, and I know people have been improvising with surveys, but now it's coming as a baked-in feature into the app and into the portal, where you can, of course, record water usage. If you've created tariffs, there's a sensitive, complete way that you can create tariffs, and you then record water use. We'll see that in action. The volume is calculated, and the amount that the customer owes is also calculated, and so on, as you would expect. And through that, you can then generate monthly bills and see what the outstanding balances are. So already with these 2 modules combined, I expect you'll be able to do just a lot more than you've ever been able to do before in mWater. On top of that, we're also allowing you to enable a full accounting suite. So this is a double entry bookkeeping system. If you have an accountant at your disposal, you can basically, without limits, achieve this total financial visibility by recording every kind of transaction down to the level that makes sense to you. Create your chart of accounts, then automatically get your balance sheet and P&L, know how profitable you are, make yourself more operationally efficient, and so on. So that's the main focus. Briefly on the agenda, I do want to contextualize this a little bit into mWater's bigger vision, and you'll also then be able to see what's coming next. We'll look at those features in a little bit more depth as slides. You'll be able to access these slides afterwards. I'll give a live demo and leave a lot of time for questions and answers and feedback on these new features. Wow, great to see so many participants already. So let's go. I love this slide. This has been our longer term vision. This slide has existed for a long while now. And this is our broader vision for providing tools for service providers. Overall, we want to just allow utilities and water operators to do more with less by helping facilitate the professionalization of WASH on the one hand, and at its core, having these data-driven utilities. And in our view, and based on literature that's available, to have a data-driven utility, there are many components that go into that. Quick as an overview, 3 years ago, we launched the mWater Global Water Asset Data Standard. This is a standard that defines what are the types of assets that you might want to collect in regards the digital data you'd want to collect relating to water systems and their assets. And that can be implemented anywhere. You could track that on paper, you could track that in any digital system. But of course, we then went and implemented that in mWater.
I've noticed that the link has been changed.
And with that, we've got all the GIS at any scale you want for just getting that first step of digitizing your assets. Next, at the start of this year, we released our water supply planning tool, which you can already find on the portal. That allows you to do budget estimation for various scenarios if you're wanting to expand your service. So if you're not familiar with that, we have articles on that, a video and a guide, and that's available on the mWater portal already. And now what we're talking about today is the second component of this finance element, this accounting system,
at the end of next week,
as well as these two commercial customer database elements. So the commercial elements for the customer database and billing, as well as meter reading. And I'm happy to say that we're already pushing onwards, just as we release these, to these remaining elements of this broader vision of all the kind of components we want to provide for free for water operators, which is digital workflows. So the ability to digitize your processes, the real world things that are happening. I'll talk a little bit if I have time about what that means. Allowing you to easily track user complaints or customer service, report leaks and so on, have things like maintenance tickets. The majority of what you're doing in terms of these activities in a utility should be about maintenance instead of responding to things when they've already gone wrong. That's where digital systems can help you, and mWater will help you, as well as keep KPI tracking, which we'll see a little bit today, water quality monitoring. So that's to say that with today's launch, we've now completed 1, 2, 3, and we're already working on 4 and 5, thanks to funding from UNICEF. And this is a little bit of a recap. If you have not used water systems in mWater before, here on the top left, there's a bit of a map of it, what's there visible to my user account. You can think of each water system with any number of assets that we talked about, having its own homepage. So that's there, visible to only the people that you choose. That's where you can manage all those assets, map them. Here you see going down to the level of photos and individual properties of these assets. And you can do that to the level that makes sense in your context. And that also scales from even individual rural boreholes where you might just have a tank and a generator and a pump, to these medium sized or larger rural utilities with 1,000 customers, let's say, all the way to the largest ones we have at the moment, which have tens of thousands of customers mapped and tens of thousands of assets mapped. So we're really wanting to operate at scale, and this is all part of that free offering. And what we'll see is that more and more we're adding these modules, and the idea is to give you a chance to start working on the digital way immediately, and you pick the elements that make sense to you. We don't force you to use anything. And as always with mWater, we don't trap you into the system by saying, once you start using us, your data is always here. No, you can import data in, and you can always export it out as well. So if you want to take it to QGIS for some really in-depth mapping or some kind of hydrological modeling or engineering design, you can always do that. But I would crystallize our design philosophy when it comes to these water system features is that the more data you put in, the more we want to give you in return automatically. So you'll see that with this asset overview here, if you filled in financial information about your assets, if you filled in when they've been installed and how long you expect them to be available, you'll immediately get these automatic visualizations highlighting where you might want to prioritize repairs and what assets are going to cost the most and are going out of date and so on. And you'll see the same with these new features that we're talking about today, where if you enter that customer information and that billing, will give you these immediate ways to visualize where might be the customers you want to address or talk to some more, where are meter readings that are overdue, other KPIs such as that. So the more you put into our water system features, the more you'll get out, and that's how we keep designing these. But enough about the broader context. We can talk about that in the Q&A. Now I want to talk about the core 3 features of today. So if we have, if we understand that each water system has its own homepage, you'll now discover that if you are a manager, administrative permissions on any water system, you'll see this whole new accounting section with all these new tabs that become available if you go through the setup process, which I'll go through with you. And these are the 3 elements that go with it. Most of everything that the new modules allow you to do, you can do in the portal, as we'll see live. But we've also upgraded the app. If you're familiar with the mWater app, we try to keep it very easy to use, localized in almost 30 languages. In the app now, if you are part of any water system where these new modules are enabled, where customer management is enabled, you'll automatically in the standard configuration see this customers button. So that's just going to be there. You don't need to do anything except activate the module. Through that, you can view your customers, find them as you're visiting them. The list of customers that you see is ordered by proximity. So the customer you're physically standing closest to will be top of the list. You can add new customer records, edit existing ones. You can go and record meter readings. It will tell you what the previous meter reading was. You can then enter the new reading. You can verify it with a photograph. It will calculate the volume, and based on the tariff that has been assigned to the client, to the customer, it'll show the amount that they will owe based on that. So those are the upgrades to the app we'll see on live. And here's the sort of immediate analysis I was promising. Here's an example of this, what we're calling the customer overview console. And this just pops up right away as soon as you start getting data in there. You can connect your customer records to the assets. So I should really highlight that. If you have mapped water points or connections, so asset types of connection in your water system, you can then, when you create a customer, link those customers to those connections and they'll show up. And you'll be able to see, well, what's the total accounts receivable if you're filtering by balance, by date, by tariff, by meter reading route. You'll see the collection rate. So what are the sort of bills that exist and the outstanding balances versus payments that have come through in the last 30 days. Last 30 days was the sensible default we went with. I'll talk a little bit how you can change that. You'll see how many customer accounts are active and not past customers. And out of those, you'll see, well, how many meters have been read in the last 30 days. We'll see the map. And we'll see more in the live demonstration as well. So that's what I want to jump to now. Hopefully everything so far is clear about the bigger mWater vision of providing more for less. How the vision of this digital data-driven utility, we're building towards it with asset management, with the planning tool, and now with these features, and heading towards workflows and so on. And let me jump over to the live version here. So now I'm on the mWater portal. So where do I find all this water asset and water system functionality? In the portal, it's here under water assets. Under sites, water assets at the moment. This gives me a view of water systems globally. There might be many more that have been set to be private and not visible to my user account, Petri, here. I'm going to go to this demonstration one with just dummy data that I like to use. It takes me to this asset view. So these are all the things that have been mapped. Every single thing is an asset I can click. Somebody's mapped. There are variable properties depending on what asset type it is. So, and that could have child assets and so on. And then I see the customer overview here. So zooming into this assumes, of course, that there's data available already. Load for a moment. At the top here, I just see customers that have positive balances and have paid up or have paid in advance potentially. And then in red, illustratively here, customers who have an outstanding balance of some kind. Here, I can toggle off some map layers. So if I'm instead interested in where are my meter readings up to date, well, I can just toggle that layer on, and I'll see here this orange color indicates that it's been 60 to 90 days. And I see from the top right that the latest meter reading date was May 13th, and so on. Let's load this again. Here, this pivot table, this is our first version of this customer console, so of course feedback is welcome. This shows how many days outstanding are bills. So this just says, and I know because these bills were just created recently for customers, there are 69 customer bills that are outstanding. So kind of telling you to act. You can then find, well, what are the ones who are requiring payment, and you can get in touch with those customers. And just tracking some overall value here of volume consumed based on meter readings. So this is a starting point. There's also a list of customers, but notice you might be aware mWater has very powerful visualization and data analysis tools built in. That's what this visualizations tab is all about. You can build dashboards to your heart's content, online spreadsheets that we call data grids and so on. So what you can do with this immediate analysis is to create a console yourself and just adjust anything. So you can make any changes. All the data that you're collecting through these new modules is available for you as data sources. So you can then start changing the map layers, adding more. And of course, this takes some skill and experience. We can support you, but this is just a starting point, what we want to provide you out of the box. And if you want to go more, you can. You then have your custom console. You can come back to your water system page and go to this configuration area where you can just add your own custom console as well. So we're providing you this immediate starting point, and you can take it further wherever you want. I'll give a little tour of what's here in this example system, and then we'll just go through the steps of setting up your own. A customer list shows you active or all customers with outstanding balances and details. Let's look at one. One customer can have one or more accounts. Mostly, in most cases, you just want to have one account, but there might be people who have multiple properties or have tenants living in the same property over time. And here, as in the app, you'll be able to record meter readings, record any kinds of payments, and record other charges like connection fee or repair fee or late penalty fee or whatever that could be. And you'll see here a little bit of a glimpse of what's happening also in the accounting system, tracking these transactions, which we'll dive into. Meters shows you a list of meter readings for customers, what they've been. You can look at the details, if it's been verified by a photo, what's the logic that creates them this amount. This was a pre-imported balance of 3 cubic meters. The number was that. So I'm using Indonesian currency here. I'll also show tariff creation, and we do have a full guide on all of this in the Help Center, in the Resource Center. So you can have a tariff, you can have multiple. That tariff can be comprised of fixed fees, so something that runs monthly, just a subscription fee or whatever that would be. And then meter rates that can also run based on volume blocks. So the first 10 cubic meters would be on a certain price in this residential tariff. The next block would be a higher price, and anything above 20 cubic meters between meter readings would be priced at 8,000 in this. And you can put them to be valid between certain dates as well. And you can have multiple, you can have your residential tariffs, your industrial, commercial, so on. So a very flexible tariff building system. Now we've added here. With accounts, I'm not going to go terribly deep since I'm assuming most of you aren't accountants, but the salient point is that it's a fully fledged double entry bookkeeping system, just an accounting system. You could run any business on it. It wouldn't have to be just a water utility. In theory, you could just track all your transactions here. I should emphasize that we haven't built any money movement features into mWater, and that's not on our roadmap. It's not that you go into mWater and trigger a payment. We haven't integrated with mobile money in any way. And that's, of course, risky for an organization to be involved in actual money moving. So this is just recording money that has moved already. If you do have that, you get this chart of accounts that will set up in the next step of creating a new system. So it gives you a sensible default starting point for the kinds of categories of assets, liabilities, equity, revenue, and expenses. So again, we want to give you this starting point. You can go for a simplified version that works in many, many, many cases, and a more elaborate version, a more full version that we've based on our collaboration with water utilities in Indonesia, in this case. More standards can be added, but also notice that, of course, you can change anything. You can create your own from scratch, your chart of accounts, and you can edit what's there already. So we're not locking you in. Briefly, transactions, just so show everything. If you are using this full accounting system, every meter reading does get created as a transaction, even if you're not using full accounting. But if there is a tariff applied on a customer, then you expect to receive payment from them. So that does create a transaction in the transaction list. You can look at that by income, you can by expenses, you can access that in data grids if you want to export and analyze, and you can also import transactions. Having spoken to users, I know it's important to be able to, in certain utilities certainly, to be able to import transactions periodically. To begin with, you're not starting from nothing, there's already money traffic. Well, don't worry, you can bring that into mWater with a clear template and clear guidance on what's needed. And you can also keep doing that. So if you have some financial system that's running already, but you want to see it with your assets and with your customers and with your meter readings, just bring it into mWater following the steps and the guide that's there. So that's possible. Customers as well, you can just bulk import them as you want. And at that step, you can add opening balances. I'll just show that. You can add opening balances. You can set tariffs, you can link them to those water assets, so those connections that you might have mapped. So hopefully helping you to start rapidly. And I'm impressed that there's already over a dozen users or water systems that have had this enabled since last Tuesday, or last Wednesday when we released, so very, very exciting. With vendors, we mean sort of people or entities that you might be buying services from. So here you might be buying water cleaning supplies, pumps, pipe maintenance services, whatever. So you can then kind of have these counterparties tracked as well, and you know how much you owe or how much somebody might owe you. That's not a customer. And again, if you're using these features, these optional accounting features more fully, you'll also get these accounting benefits right away. Printable profit and loss reports for this month, for last month, for any date range, and the balance sheet for any given date. What was the reality of your assets, liabilities, and equity on any given date? So that's a lot of lists, a lot of data, but also a lot of power and a lot of insight for you to manage things. So that's a full example system now. Let me just show you how easy it is to set that up, and then show you also the app side, how that works. So if I go to just any system, I think I had one open, just a demonstration system. If you have not yet enabled accounting, you'll just see a few options here, and it will give you this option here, this introduction to say, you can set up your accounting for your water system. You just need to do this once. So one click, set up accounting system, and go through a few steps. So now you have a bit of context to understand that first it asks you to choose your financial structure. So this is the chart of accounts that's in the background. And the recommended option at this point is to just use the simplified chart of accounts. And you can view what the details are before you choose it. But that's accounting info we don't need to dive into now. You can have this standard chart of accounts based on documentation and collaboration with Indonesian PDAMs. or a blank one where you define everything and it's not messy with what we provide. Then you select what you're going to include. Customer management is the default. Meter reading allows you to do that meter reading and set up tariffs. And full accounting is toggled on by just selecting this. Later on, if you find, oh, you're not using it, you don't want to have that there, you can switch it up. Set a day for billing. It's going to be 1 day of the month if you want this rolling generation of bills, and you'll find any globally, internationally recognized currency here. Click setup. So this was under a minute or about 1 minute. It's going to do this one-off process of setting up at the water system level. So highlighting that as well. It's not an accounting system that sits somewhere up there and you can plug it into 10 water systems. It's here at the water system level. The other things I want to cover here briefly is that I didn't show you a bill, actually. We can take a look at that. When you look at bills, you can create your custom title, add a custom logo, and have some optional footer text like terms and conditions. So it looks more like your bill clearly when you print it off, you email it to customers. Also, we've added a much more granular set of permissions for accounting, mindful that only very limited sets of people would typically need to see full transaction information and so on. So the details are in the guide that I've written, but basically for each user or group of users, you can set each of these categories. Can they record payments or not? Can they view the accounting system or not? I'll also mention here limited routes, meaning if you're managing a large water utility, you have lots of meters to visit, you can create these routes. Here's the east side of town, these 50 people or 500. And then you can say, oh, well, this is the team A, and they should only be limited to route A, route 1. So then they only see the east side customers in the app, and it's a way of managing the work. Again, explained in the guide. It's also possible to delete the accounting system. So that's how easy it was to set it up. And then it's a matter of starting to add data, importing, entering it in, linking it to assets you might have. I'll also show the app while we're at it. So I'm logged in as myself in the standard configuration, mindful that we do provide custom app solutions where you may need to go through an extra step to add this. We see the customers button, and as a reminder, that shows up if you are part of even one water system where these new features are enabled. The app will recognize that, and you'll see this customer list. So because I am part of many now, I will just look for the example one I had. I think it's the national MIS one. And you'll see that there's this list of customers. You can search it by name, by ID, address, and this was ordered by who's closest to you. You can add a new customer. Well, I should put CR. Any kind of unique ID. And so on. And each customer must have at least one customer account. I need to have two. Some kind of. Yeah. Okay, so one customer account. It's going to default to an accounts receivable account, an accounting term, but again, we provide the default. You can say that as we added this customer, they already owed us 6,000. Now here you can select from the assets you may have already mapped. Now I haven't mapped one for myself. If that asset has a meter ID filled in, it's going to show up here. And now I can choose which tariff to assign if I want. That's enough to create a customer record. And that's going to synchronize with the portal and so on. So you'll be able to see these right away as soon as the app has synced. And now with the customer record created on the residential tariff, I'll just also show how easy it is to do the meter reading. So as a reminder, you can download the app, Android, iOS, use it on your browser, and the same login works, assuming the user has permission in the permissions view that we just looked at. Yes, when you're demonstrating, it loads a bit slower. So here, I can record meter readings or any arbitrary payments or charges. So let's say that there was an opening balance. You went to visit for a meter reading. They immediately said, oh, I'll pay. They gave you that in cash on hand. So the enumerator got that. They recorded. And that's just recording that this thing happened. Now there's no outstanding balance, but there was a meter reading done. Say we don't know what it was before. Let's say it was 0. And now it's 14 cubic meters since the last meter reading last month. And it automatically calculates based on that tariff. We saw that tariff where it had that block rate from 0 to 10 at 1,100, and then beyond that at 4,000. So it combines the total, and I could then take a photo, verify that, and have a record. And that's how easy it is in the app to do the customer meter reading. Okay, so in the interest of time, I'll jump back to the presentation. So that was basically all I wanted to show. I guess the one thing I haven't shown is the bill, but we can return to that in Q&A if you have questions on how to do things. I think that covered all the key points. So just before we move on to discussion, I'll say a few more words about the things that are coming up that will still build on all of these things. So to motivate you even more to start using these features, because it's going to only get better. So the more established organizations and utilities join mWater, the more they're of course already using other systems. So they might, we combine many things. We are partly Power BI, we're partly ArcGIS, we're partly Salesforce for project management. We are, ODK and Kobo Toolbox. So we do many things. But of course, if you have Power BI data analysis experts or mapping wizards using ArcGIS, you might want to have data flowing between things like that. Or you might want to have sensors in your water utility sending information into mWater. That's going to become easier than ever before with this new integration feature that we are working on at the moment. So imagine just a page where you can go to say, oh, I know this sensor provider. I have 20 sensors from here, and I know where to go to get that data. So you can then set up a timed flow of data into mWater, let's say a custom table. So you can say, okay, bring these 20 sensor pieces into mWater, map the fields like this, run it every day, every week, and link it to these assets I've mapped. And then in the consoles that we've seen, you can imagine that data showing up, at least if you've made the tweak. And the same the other way around. You can kind of expose endpoints from mWater's side saying, okay, we've got all the customer data flowing in, the meter reading data in, but we need to have something for donors or something like that. So we make it ever easier in this view of democratizing data access through the features that we publish. So you don't need to have a programmer who studies the API very much. Then the bigger piece that's also being worked on links to those elements I showed earlier with digitizing your processes using workflows. So this is being worked on, will be there in the future, but imagine things like automatic maintenance reminders, like every month, please check your generators, please check your tanks and other assets that you sign. Reporting issues, whether that's from field technicians, you can customize that, or from customers. And then if you have set ways of implementing projects, expanding use, drilling boreholes, if you have a process that really exists in the real world, we want to provide you a way to digitize that so that you can see and assign things step by step and see where a given process is at and have that also in the system. So big piece, very exciting piece, but it directly builds on what we've built here already. So I wanted to bring it up here before moving away to the open discussion phase and Q&A. So here's the recap. These 3 modules really aiming to allow water operators to do more with less. They're available on any water system that you manage. You can enable it in a minute, choose the modules that make sense for you. You've seen a flavor of what it means, and we have a whole guide for it. But basically, as a quick recap, you can add customers, link them to your assets, the connection ones, create tariffs, do meter readings, see how much a customer owes, set up automatic billing, then start getting those immediate actionable insights already in the customer overview console, or pick that data and do whatever you like with it, do your own custom visualizations that suit your purposes. And on top of that, if you have a little bit more resource, if you have an accountant at your disposal, those meter readings turn into transactions automatically. So you have that flow. And if you record payments from customers, that's kind of happening already, but you can expand that massively to capture all of the customer or all of the transaction activity that you want for your utility, and then see, are we profitable? What needs to change to be so we can be more profitable? What should we do? So that was all the slide and structured stuff I wanted to tell you today. Thanks very much for the attention so far. There's also a link for feedback either on this talk or on the features as you use them. But since there's so many of you attending, wonderful, wonderful. Let's move on to questions and comments. Feel free to speak up as well and unmute yourself if you want to like. I see a hand up from Girma. Any thoughts? I think you've already created a system and started experimenting with these features. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I wanted to appreciate the teams for providing us this module, and also I try to assess and I try to evaluate the systems as soon as the systems launch on mWater. And in context to our local, I am from Oromia, I'm from Ethiopia and Oromia, and I wanted to use this system for my utilities because it's a best solution that fits our demands. So before I'm proceeding to this, I do have 3 questions. Number one is I do have 3 questions. Okay, number one is about the open source accessibilities. So if the local
that cut off for me. I heard open source accessibility. So I'll just answer that point. So I'm sorry, that cut off for me. But open source accessibility, well, we are open access. So we have a central server. We run it for everybody. You set the privacy level and the data is secure. Others don't see it. But we don't have a way for you to set up your own server where you just take the mWater code and run it separately. That's kind of our vision, is that having that central platform allows for the whole sector to cooperate much more. Hopefully that speaks to your point, but did Girma even, sorry, I don't hear you anymore. Oh, go ahead.
But our interest is just we wanted to localize it because we wanted to deploy on our premise servers or on our local servers. So is there any access or requirement to govern our data or local customizations?
Yes, well, customization plenty, but local, meaning running locally at the moment, no. We're not close to the idea, but to take it from where mWater is now to that point where you could set it up and control everything about it is a multiple 100,000 project and not funded at the moment. So we want to provide that sweet spot where you don't need deep technical expertise for the system to run, for the nuts and bolts of it. And that's just how it is. You have to kind of work within that. But within that scope, you know, customize, we can add languages, change translations. As you saw, you can change the consoles and the analytics, and we're open to feedback on the features as well. So, but there's no sort of advanced access that would allow you to just start running it locally.
Okay, my final question is about these modules. That's customer billing management and the meter reading and accounting too. It's very sensitive and very very critical tasks, and I really want to appreciate also the teams to design and develop these important tools. And also, this is our plans to implement as a demonstration in one utilities in our in my governances or in context in Oromia. But something that is we want, if we wanted to integrate with the banks with using an APIs, how we can do it, because how we can manage different integrations, because
yes.
So I think you understand what I wanted to say.
Yes, it's sensitive information. You need to link it to local banks and so on. And it's a great question. So I would say right now, what you can do is go to API mWater.co to understand our API's rules and conditions and detailed technical implementation. Also, the quick option is if you go to our help center and just search for API, there is a quick start option, and this would already be enough, I think, to get like user transactions that you have permissions to see going into another system. And the basic idea really quickly is that you create a data grid, which is our version of a spreadsheet. And as soon as you save it and you download it, that creates an API call that you can see, and this tells you how. And then in the other system, you can then pass that API call in. And what does it take? It's all the rows and columns of data that you have decided to include in that data grid. So I also saw some comments there in the chat to say, well, can you get the bills as CSV files for SMS distribution, and can you maybe get any kind of integration? So then, yes, you can already do that with these API calls and this quick start API. So no problem there. And I know many users are already integrating, of course, not these new modules, but other data in mWater. But I just want to take you also back to where we will be in some months, which is this more user-facing interface. So you don't have to be a developer. Once this integrator feature is ready, you can just find a new page in mWater where it's still a technical process, but hopefully the more examples we get, the more we can provide you templates that get you there faster. So you can already do it, and it's going to get easier. Yes.
Okay. Finally, I wanted to thank you for giving me the chances and also to provide us these important tools for free. And we will use it properly and post our results in your LinkedIn. And thank you for chance.
Fantastic. Appreciate that. We're really excited to hear use cases you might have. So, and also if you do get stuck, reach out to us. You can always email us at problems@mwater.co or me and CC problems. So there we go. Thanks very much, Girma. I'll just review what questions have come through otherwise. So we talked a little bit about SMS distribution. At the moment, we don't have SMS distribution, though it's a conversation that has come up internally within the last month. As always, one of the many things I love about mWater is that the features that exist in the system are there because somebody's funded it. So there's a real world reason. It's not me here in Finland, for example, deciding, oh, wouldn't it be cool? So if there's budget for SMS integration, I think there's room for us to discuss and go there. But also, as mentioned, with the API stuff that you already saw and the integrator that's coming, you'll probably be able to create these flows relatively easily to take the data they collect in mWater and just trigger SMS sending with good flow. But we don't have any inbuilt broadcasting yet. So Jean-Philippe has a question. Thank you. What steps do you suggest to learn how to use the suite of tools for water operators? So we have videos, we have guides. I think what I've thought of developing next would be targeted sort of step-by-step things for different levels of water utilities. So if you're a small operator, think about this, and if you're a larger operator, think about that. But right now, the best things you can do in terms of just getting good at mWater is to go to the portal. Well, you can find the guide from the water system as well. But you can just look for customer management. It's a long guide with a long video, like an hour-long video I wrote. I've created, and just step by step that should cover the ins and outs. But open to feedback, of course. So also open to your suggestions, because I'm certainly here hovering far away from the real work being done. So if the community here has suggestions on what would most practically help water utilities learn these features and see the benefits, I'm also open to suggestions. So thank you. Great question. Next question from Paolo. Thank you. Is there a way to convert water points into water assets? So, well, water points, if they're in a water system, already exist as assets, right? They have this strange dual nature. Other ones, no. And if not, then the way to add water assets is through the sites import. We could maybe do a bit more to make the import more intuitive for assets. But it wouldn't take long to export your water points and then import them as water assets, as long as you put them in the right system. So I'm in the sites, on the sites page, click import. It will give you a template, and then you fill it in with what you want is the basic flow. But there's no button to convert sites into assets otherwise. So water points that are in water systems should already be assets. Maybe we can talk a little bit more in detail after, Paulo. I see John was responding already, CSV exports. And then a question from Chilala. Hello. How do I upload a survey in a CSV file? Sure. Well, survey imports. It's not survey data directly that we're talking about with this customer information. We have a guide on that as well, on imports. Importing survey data. It needs to be an XLSX file to do the import, but you go to the survey, it has to have a deployment. You go to the responses tab, so survey, responses, fill out your spreadsheet and upload it. In the detail view, you can do sort of bulk edits and quicker editing that way, and they have tools there. Yes. TISA, we're unable to, it's not in the survey, we're unable to access the customer option on the survey or even after updating. You shouldn't have to give any other access as long as you are, that user account is part of a customer, as a water system where customer management is enabled. So TISA, please can you try making sure that you have a water system. In that water system, you go through the steps we went through, which configured the accounting, and in the accounting, that user is included, or the user group. As long as that's there, and I've tested this on multiple accounts, in the app, in the standard configuration, the customer button will show up. If you try that and it still doesn't show, I'll reach out, we'll respond as a priority. Is there a projected date range for the launch of the integrator? It's what we're actively working on full speed now. I would say Q4 this year, Q4. I'd be happy if that was reality. Yep. But maybe John might have further feedback on that. And John has already been answering that TISA question as well. Great question also from Enoch. Considering that most of the systems in rural areas serve people with no email addresses, does mWater enable printing receipts from phone direct to handheld printers? So there's a little bit of story here. There's a good opportunity for me to thank all the partner organizations who have supported us getting this far with funding. World Vision Wash helped us get to the finish line with this. An earlier iteration was strongly helped by WaterAid, WaterAid Australia, who were grappling with exactly this issue in Papua New Guinea and so on. And there we did explore handheld printers and printing on those. And we had a successful prototype, but it's not, we're still gauging customer need for it. So it's feasible. It's not part of this package. I don't think it would be very far a difficult thing to accomplish, but it might be a little bit case by case on the individual printer. So we just sort of tried the best available option, and there might be like extra work we need to do for each different type of printer potentially. Let me take that down as important user feedback that we can factor into as we iterate on this. So handheld printing. But I realized I did not show you the bill. It's also, of course, physically printable. So the default format is a full page printout. But I appreciate that's not something that's trivial to do if you're a meter reader somewhere. So I'll just show the bill whilst I'm at it. Default view here and QR code for scanning and showing it, and a print view there. Thank you, Arjen, as well as it loads. I'll read your question. So yeah, a full page, you could format it differently already. So you could, maybe there's a way you can get it as a PDF and send that to a handheld printer. But yes, just to recap that, I'll do some homework on that. We have done earlier work on that, and might be a future thing. What is the offline capabilities for customer information? With WaterPoints, we use sync using the map to have WaterPoint data offline. At the moment, I think it's just logging all customer data as well as all meter reading data. Yeah, it's very, very lightweight. But I need to check whether that includes old photos. That's the big bandwidth thing. I don't expect it would have photos for old records. There is, of course, without going too deep into the technical element right now that we have some time left, but in custom configs, there is an advanced caching option, and that allows you to basically cache anything on the app. But that's only for these paid partnerships. There you can sort of set further rules. But I'll need to check a little bit on the details of whether it stores those meter reading photos. It does sync the older readings. Yes, okay, we're in alignment with John in terms of the integrator timings. Yes, Nikki, the recorded session will be posted on YouTube and maybe little clips of it in addition to the whole thing. And Girma, subsidy, okay. Customize or add additional fields such as subsidy type, customer category, or Kibele ID directly within the customer or billing forms. And I see this has been thumbed up multiple times. Very interesting question. Not out of the box, but this seems to me like something we absolutely want to take away and reflect on to how do we expand these for if there's extra data fields needed. Great. El Wasco commercial manager. A bit of a expected question, but of course important. Integration of payment agents like M-Pesa. We would leave it to you. I mean, since we are a team serving the whole world's wash needs, if we start spending more and more time of our time working on every integration for every user, that's going to grind development to a halt, and we'll be spending our days supporting that. So primarily it's giving you that API documentation, and this is exactly where we also hope the integrator can be a revolutionary step for you to be able to do those linkages, but hopefully also share if it works for you and then help others use those pathways. So just to recap what I briefly mentioned earlier is that our hope is with the integrator is that, oh.
He is Patrick.
Yes. Hello? Yeah. Oh. With the integrator, our hope is that if once users start making these linkages, or we help them on a one-to-one case basis, it forms a template that makes it easier for other users. So if we were to make one M-Pesa integration in the future, once the integrator is complete, so next year, that could then become a quick access way for anybody to do that. So I see that pathway ahead as well. But right now, if you want to do it this year, you'll need to use the API and your own skills. Still have 6 minutes. Demonstrate where data can be found. Good question. So yeah, if we have our console, should be, let's say we imagine did I have this? So how do we actually, when we're building visualizations, if you're a kind of data dashboard designer here, how do you access that data? You'll see a slight change in our data sources, where you now see site surveys and all the way over here, accounting. And each accounting system that you have access to, meaning every one that you've configured, has these tables. So in the one we've been looking at, the national MIS one, transactions, customers, account categories. The guide actually that I keep mentioning has a link that shows you like the full definition of the table, so you can really understand it if you want to go deep into this. And each of these ones has these same tables. It's sort of a partition big table. So if you wanted to and I have examples in the guide video I've made of exactly how to do this, but I could go look at customers. Maybe transactions by day makes more sense. Something like transactions, date. So how many transactions? This just shows how many transactions were done in a month, for example. So this is now using that transaction information, but just for that one water system at once. And then it's all about this complex stuff, which is understanding what's there in the data. But what's there in the data is what you saw in that demonstration earlier. This is how you go. So that accounting data source. Ben, hello. If one organization is managing more than one water system, is there a way to have a unified view of customers and accounting for the whole company organization? Have the system level only. Now, in mWater, always some way available. We have subqueries nowadays and all kinds of web pivot tables that can show multiple data sources in one place, but there's no sort of magic quick route yet. There's no sort of place to say, well, these 7 water systems are actually water for people's water systems, and therefore we should just see a giant customer list. I don't feel that that's hugely distant if that was a real big piece of it, but since the way we're designing this is at the water system level, so we need to be something like multiple widgets or elaborate subqueries and things at the moment. Hola Anibal, hello. Is this feature going to be extended or used in sanitation services? Yes, great question. So sanitation, also a big ongoing and future thing for us. We've been working since we've had such success with the water standard. We immediately started getting requests for a sanitation asset standard. That's something we've been working on, and it's more complex. But the future I see, and correct me, John, Annie, if there's anything here, is that we'll have the asset standard for sanitation. We'll implement a parallel system that we do have for water, but for sanitation. Right now, people are already using the water system features to map sanitation, because pipes are pipes. If you even if it's called a water pipe, but you know it's a sanitation pipe and a sewer pipe, you can just use it that way. And there's nothing in the customer management features or the accounting features that locks you into talking only about water. So we're building more and more of that. It's going to look more and more official. I would urge you to already maybe experiment using these features for sanitation management if you see value in them. And we'd also be interested, I'd be interested in supporting that and also hearing about those experiences, because that can lead and help us with the sanitation work. So people are already using the water features for sanitation and getting quite far with it, as I understand, so you can do that. But that's my response there. Yes. Great answers here already. Great. Great, and yeah, thanks Annie and John for amazing text answers in the chat, which be there. All right, well, that brings us to the top of the hour. This was very stimulating. Thank you so much for the great questions and the patience here. Hopefully you are even a little bit as excited about these features as I am. I think it's absolutely great. Wishing you all the success in making use of these features. We're here to support you with this. We love responding to user problem reports and supporting you, so feel free to get in touch if you get stuck on anything. We have people around the world and basically covering all time zones. So no matter what the issue, just reach out to us, and I would love to understand pain points, customer feedback or user feedback from you, how we can keep making this better. We really want to have this iterative approach and have always had it to just launch, get feedback, keep improving, make it valuable for where it actually matters. So yes, there we go. I'll finish with that. thanking you all and wishing you all a great week. I will upload this to YouTube and post about it on LinkedIn as soon as I can. Thank you. Lily. Thanks, everybody. Bye.